Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Um, Hope you all had a good weekend. Reminders that if you haven't turned in the work from last week, you should be turning them in today. And again, if you received an NX for the second marking period, make sure that you're still making up that work so that you are able to pass marking period 2. All right, so for today's do now, you are describing in as much detail as you can one single outdoor scene. So you're trying to be descriptive. So for example, right now I am in my sunroom, which is somewhat outside, somewhat not. But in my sunroom, I have three signs hanging above the windows that says faith, hope, and love. Then towards the right side, I have a wooden ladder that has a picture frame hanging of me and all of my friends when I was a senior in college. I also have two blankets hanging on the ladder. And then on the left hand side of the ladder, I have a small little stool, um, black stool that says antiques on it. And on the stool, I have 5 different books, mostly hardcover, but they're very aesthetic. And then on the right side of the ladder, I have a chest, a black chest that I also used for college. I have 3 flowers that are on top of the chest, and I'm also sitting right next to it as well in my recliner. So then on the left side of me, of the recliner, I have a small table with an eat-in tray that has my coasters, candles, my coffee, and whatnot. So that's just one example of how detailed you can be when describing something. Right. So let's say it's if you have a balcony, what's outside your balcony? Perhaps you go to the park all the time. Describe the park, describe the trees. If you can't think of an outdoor space, then it's totally fine if you choose somewhere in your apartment or house. Okay. So that's the do now for today. For today's vocabulary, again, at any point you can pause the video, and if you have a notebook and you're writing your definitions down, please do. So today we're reviewing alliteration. So alliteration is the occurrence of the same letter or sound at the beginning of adjacent or closely connected words. So adjacent means side by side. So here we have Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. And then you should say that fast 5 times, or at least try. Right? Another example would be Sally sells seashells by the seashore. The alliteration there is the letter S. For Peter Piper, the alliteration is P. How much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? Right? That would be W. So alliteration is the occurrence of the same letter or sound. Then we have symbolism. This should definitely be review. Symbolism is a style of writing that uses objects or symbols to represent ideas or themes. So for example, in the Hunger Games, the image of the mockingjay represents rebellion. We said another symbol, the American flag, right, might represent freedom. A dove might represent peace. The heart symbolizes love, right? So there's many different symbols. It's an object that represents an idea or concept. And then lastly, we have imagery. So imagery is visually descriptive written language that paints a picture using words. So when you're describing your do now, right, it should fall under imagery, because when you close your eyes, you should be able to picture whatever it is that you're describing. So our example here is the boy's eyes were shining blue from the reflected screen light, versus the boy was looking at the screen, right? So from there, we can see what the boy was looking at, the TV. All right, so those are our 3 review for literary elements. Today's poem is called Ebb by Edna St. Vincent Millay. Here's how it goes. I know what my heart is like since your love died. It is like a hollow ledge holding a little pool left there by the tide, a little tepid pool drying inward from the edge. If that doesn't sound depressing, I don't know what does, right? So definitely a set mood there. But for you guys, for today, I'm not asking you to write any poetry. I'm asking you to analyze the poetry. So what is she comparing her heart to? How does she feel after your love died? What happened to her Earl? Maybe what happened to the girl? Sorry. What does the extended metaphor represent? How does the use of an extended metaphor simile convey her meaning in a stronger way than if she just said, I'm really sad, right? So we can tell that the poem is depressing. So what does she use, right? Whether simile, metaphor, to convey the meaning that she is sad. And again, what happened to the girl? So what are some inferences that you can make? So again, if you need to review back the poem, again, the handout will have the poem and your analysis questions. However, not analyzing just one, but 2 poems. So this one is Daybreak in Alabama by Langston Hughes. And also, so I forgot to mention, we're reviewing extended metaphor poems, right? So they're using a metaphor throughout the whole poem to represent something, symbolize something. Okay, so here goes. When I get to be a composer, I'm going to write me some music about daybreak in Alabama. And I'm going to put the prettiest songs in it, rising out of the ground like a swamp mist and falling out of heaven like soft dew. I'm going to put some tall, tall trees in it, and the scent of pine needles, and the smell of red clay after rain, and long red necks, and poppy-colored faces, and big brown arms, and the field daisy eyes of black and white, black people. I'm going to put white hands and black hands and brown and yellow hands and red clay earth hands in it, touching everybody with kind fingers and touching each other natural as dew in that dawn of music when I get to be a composer and write about daybreak in Alabama. All right, so here he wants to write music, right? And when he gets to write music, he's describing what he would write about. So how does the phrase, the smell of wet clay after the rain, help you visualize the scene better than a phrase like muddy ground would have? And then what extended metaphor might Langston Hughes be trying to create? And will the world he describes be inclusive or exclusive? And how will it be different from the world he lives in? So Langston Hughes, right, a little more about him. I forget if we actually read something from him. I feel like we did, but sometimes my classes get mixed together. So he was during the Harlem Renaissance period, right? So when we talked about Richard Wright and the Rite of Passage, a lot of the same ideas were integrated in the style of writing during that time. So they faced the Civil Rights Union, or the Civil Rights Movement started to slowly rise during that time. And so with Langston Hughes, right, daybreak in Alabama, after the time of slavery, right, daybreak meaning breaking free from that. And so being able to write about bringing people together, right, because he talks about many different colors, hands. So that's definitely something to include. And then inclusive means that you're including everybody, versus exclusive meaning you're excluding, like keeping certain people out. So the world that he describes, is it including people or keeping people out? So how is it different from the world that he lives in? So learning a little more about his history. Now, again, at any point, you can do your own research. That's highly encouraged. Google your own research on Richard Wright. Again, the poetry that he writes, in order to better have a good analysis in your responses. All right. So that's all I'm asking you to do today. No poems of your own. Just analyze some more poems. All right. Hope you have a good day. Bye-bye. Let me know if you have any questions. All right.